Guru Poornima celebrations. The official date for Guru Poornima is tomorrow, July 3rd, but in our center we are celebrating it this weekend. July 2nd, we are celebrating Guru Poornima. With that in mind, we have a we have a panel discussion planned at the time of study circle, leveraging our in-house center knowledge, center expertise, and center grace to share some thoughts and views on the topic that was picked, Guru's feet to Guru in me. I wanted to thank all the panelists. Before that, I wanted to thank Swami for implanting the idea in me, because this was something that came up very quickly all together, and from the thought to fruition did not take long. It was Swami's time. Absolutely, like it always happens. So wanted to thank the moderator and all the panelists for agreeing to be part of this panel. One last housekeeping announcement I would like to make is between the study circle and the bhajan time, when the Swami's darshan music is being played, we request to maintain some peace and quiet as we would do in Prashanti Nilayam, and minimize the noise and the pollution, the noise pollution thereof we may have here. So without taking any further time, I turn it over to Suri and to the panelists to take us through a very introspective and reflective discussion on this topic. Sai Ram.
Sai Ram Sita, thank you. My humble pranams at the lotus feet of our dearest Swami, our inner Guru, his feet, and forever our guide. Shri Guru, Paramaguru, Parameshti Guru, Paratpara Guru, Mahaguru Swarupaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Dakshinamurtaye, Mahyam Medham Prajnam Prayacha Swaha. Sai Ram again. So, the way we are going to do this today is we will start off, Shiva is going to play us a stotram from Swami first. Let's hear that, and then I will explain what we will do.
Nityanandam Paramasukhadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gagana Sadrusam Tattvamasyadilakhyam Yekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadi Sachibhudam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Bhavatitam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Nityanandam Brahmanandam Advaitanandam Atmanandam.
So Sai Ram, I always like this, and as I was preparing for this is the first time I heard Swami singing it. So he sent it my way, so I thought it's appropriate to play on this wonderful day. The way we are going to go about do this is I'm going to just spend maybe 5 minutes max setting this up, not speaking too much. I will let Swami speak. And then I'm going to engage with the wonderful panel here for maybe 20, 30 minutes. At the end of that, we're going to throw it open for all of you to share your suggestions and see how the time plays out. Okay? So Shiva, I'm going to ask the two youngsters here one question before Shiva plays that. So what is the first message Swami sent to all of us? What did Swami do at his Avatar Declaration Day time? What song did he sing? There you go. So that is the first message from Swami. Let's listen to it in his own voice.
मानस भजरे गुरु चरणम दुस्तर भ्रम सागर तरणम मानस भजरे गुरु चरणम दुस्तर भव सागर तरणम भजरे गुरु चरणम दुस्तर भव सागर तरणम
Okay, so that is the very first exhortation from Swami for all of us. And then Swami later told us where to look for the Guru. Okay, play the next one. Or maybe where not to look for the Guru.
ప్రేమ స్వరూపులారా, ఏదో గురు పౌర్ణమి అనుకొని ఏదో బాహ్యమైనటువంటి గురువులంతా చేర్చుకొని ఏదో కొన్ని పూజలు పునస్కారములని ఈ యొక్క అల్పమైనటువంటి కార్యాల్లో మన జీవితాన్ని మరింత బంధించుకోనారు.
Embodiments of divine love. In the name of Guru Poornima, we should not get bound by wrongly understanding Guru Poornima and Guru as
గురువు ఒక్కడే, దైవం ఒక్కడే గురువు.
There is only one Guru. And
ఆ గురువు ఎవరు? అది నీవే.
Who is that Guru? It is yourself.
ఆ గురుత్వం అనేటువంటి దైవత్వం నీలోనే ఉంటుంది. నీవెక్కడో బయట ప్రపంచంలో వెతకడానికి ప్రయత్నిస్తున్నావు.
That Guru in the form of divinity is residing in you, but you are searching for the Guru in the outside world.
కనుక బ్రహ్మ విష్ణు మహేశ్వర స్వరూపులు నీ యొక్క గుణములే.
The Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara are the qualities which are embedded in you.
Okay, so we heard now these two profound messages from Swami. So it's now time to engage our panel. So panel, here is my question. These are, as I said, very profound messages. So I would like to know, how have you implemented these teachings? How have you sort of internalized these teachings? And for those of you who are maybe gurus and have children, how are you imparting this? So you can talk about all those aspects, or at least one of those aspects. Make sense? Okay. So we're going to start with our young adult, our recent 1 year back SSC graduate, Pragna. Can you start, please?
Sairam, thank you, Uncle. So when I thought about this question, I'm just like, I just finished a year of college, and it was just a year ago that I kind of like stepped out of my house and went to a completely different state and just suddenly was just in a brand new environment. So when it comes to Guru, and when we grow up, like when we're children, we're constantly surrounded by external figures who we feel that are our gurus. So we have our parents, we have our school teachers, we have our SSE gurus, We have sports coaches and music teachers and everyone who are there to guide us, teach us right from wrong, teach us how to play an instrument, teach us how to do a sport. So because they offer tips and advice and kind of guide us and help us shape our path, we feel, okay, there are gurus, they're there for us to guide us and to teach us. So when we look at them, we say, okay, here are teachers or gurus. And then when it comes to what Swami says, the guru is within yourself, I thought of it as basically you're your own mentor. At the end of the day, you teach yourself lessons. There's so many things that you learn on your own. And from my perspective, I feel that I'm in a transition because growing up, I had so many figures around me who were my gurus, but as soon as I stepped out of the house and I'm going to college out of state, I feel like there are stuff that you sort of learn on your own, especially like life skills that your gurus from when you were younger can't necessarily teach you, but you have to learn kind of on your own through the experiences that you face in the future. So those are my thoughts. Sairam.
Wonderful, wonderful. At such an engage, taking the essence and saying, I have to look within myself. So really nice. So now let me throw it open to Amar.
Yeah, Sairam everyone. So in the first teaching, Swami is telling, Manasa Bhajare Guru Charanam, right? So Swami is telling us to take refuge in the feet of the Guru. And Swami goes on to tell, Guru is, the only Guru is God. So we can say, Swami is saying, take refuge in the feet of the God, right? Because Guru is nothing but God, Swami is saying, right? So take refuge in the feet of the God. So if you kind of generalize that a little bit, right, it becomes take refuge in the form of the God. So Swami is pretty much, that teaching of Swami is in tune with the God with form aspect, right? God with form aspect. Now, if you look at the second teaching, right? The video that, that Shiva played, right? So, there Swami is saying God, God is the only Guru, and that God is the divinity within you. That God is the conscience, the Atma, within you, the voice of the God within you, right? That, so now this is the aspect of God without form, right? This is the aspect of God without form. Now the question that, that Suri asked, right? Which do we follow? Where do we take our, where do we take our shelter? Where do we take our refuge? The formless God, that is the divinity within us, or the form of the God, the Swami, right? The Swami we all love and know, right? So where do we turn for refuge? That's an interesting question. And, where do we, it depends really on which teaching we approach, depends really on where we are in our spiritual journey, right? So, for us, or for me, very strong identification with body and mind, right? I think we all pretty much have very strong identification with body and mind, and we, for that reason, we are pretty much alien to our own Atma, the divinity within us, the conscience within us, right? So we are pretty much alien to it, and because of that, we can't clearly hear the voice of the conscience, the divinity within us, So oftentimes it happens, we think we are hearing our conscience, but really it is, we are thinking we are hearing the voice of the conscience, but it turns out it is the noise of the mind, It happened to me many times, I thought I was listening to my conscience, and I blindly followed, and later on I found out my mind tricked me, It was making me think its own noise as the voice of the God, right? Voice of the divinity within. So it's happened many times. Happened as recently as maybe just a couple of months back, right? So which one do we follow? Given the stage we are in, we might as well. I think we are better off taking the shelter of the form of the Lord, right? Taking the shelter of the form of the Lord. And once we weaken our association with the body and mind and strengthen our association with the inner self, the Atma, the divinity within us, then, maybe the voice becomes more clear, more explicit. And then we can follow that voice implicitly, right? So that's one. Now, okay, we are at the body and mind conscious level. So do we totally ignore the voice of the inner voice, the voice of the divinity, the conscience, right? Swami calls it conscience, right? So do we ignore the conscience? Because we do sometimes here, maybe we are not able to distinguish. But, between the voice of the divinity and the noise of the mind, sometimes we are not able to distinguish. But so do we ignore, how do we really, what do we do about it, right? So here's what we can do, So if we take a couple of examples, if my inner conscience is telling me, learn a bhajan, there's no risk in following that command of the inner voice, right? So I can blindly follow that, the inner voice, in the voice of the divinity from within, right? I can follow that, so no problem, no risk, I can blindly follow it, right? What if, the inner conscience is telling me, get out of the stock market, exit the stock market, and I'm sitting on 40% losses, So that's not, that's very risky. I mean, I'll stand to lose quite a bit of money, right? Now, do I blindly follow that voice, which I'm thinking is the voice of the inner divinity? Is it the voice of the inner divinity, or is it the voice of the fear of further losses, right? So I must introspect. I must put it to reason. I must put it to the rigor of logic and reasoning and probably professional advice if needed, right? So I would say my approach to this, the voice of, listening to the voice of the divinity from within, a practical approach would be, if there's no risk, follow it, right? Follow it, If there's risk, put it to the test of the rigor of logic and reasoning, and seek advice if needed, right? So that's how I would approach it, right? And, the title is From Guru's Feet to Guru in Me, right? So we are at the level of Guru's feet. Now, how do we progress to Guru in me? How do we make that voice inside us clearer, louder, right? Where we can follow more implicitly without having to test or doubt or, all of that, right? Without having to without having to doubt the voice, right? So how do we progress there, right? And in fact, there is this, this path is laid down for us by Swami. So let me read a quote that tells us how to go from the feet of Swami to the Guru within, right? So let me read this quote. At first, name and form are essential. That is the reason why avatars come, so that God can be loved, adored, worshipped, listened to, and followed, and finally realized as the nameless and formless. So Swami has laid the path from the form to the formless. And the formless is is the divinity within us, within everybody, all around us, right? So how do we go from, worshipping the form to the worshipping, connecting with the formless? Swami is saying, God should be loved, adored, worshipped, listened to, and followed. That's important. Listened to and followed, right? So that is the key message there. We need to listen to Swami. We need to practice what Swami is saying, right? Jesus used to say, you call me Lord, call me Lord, 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 but you don't follow what I tell you to do, So what's the point of calling me Lord, Lord, Lord when you don't follow what I tell you to do, right? So we need to follow what Swami is telling. And what is the principal teaching of Swami? What is the main teaching of Swami? So, it's love, right? Love. Swami's repeated teaching, main teaching is love. And, Swami says love is God, right? And Swami says, develop love. And Swami also says, love is selflessness, Love is God and love is selflessness. So to grow in love, we have to grow in selflessness. So the practical aspect of it, right? So what is the message? What is the message? How do we go from Guru's feet to the Guru in me, right? The Guru in me, the Guru in everyone, you know. The same Guru that is in the same God in me is in everyone also, right? How do I connect to that God, right? So Swami is telling, you develop love. And to develop love, Swami is saying love is nothing but selflessness. When we grow in selflessness, our association with the body and the mind decreases. Just like a mother, when she loves her little child, she doesn't hesitate to take any risk to safeguard the life of her child, right? So she has risen above her body and mind consciousness. So when we grow in selflessness, we will raise above our, mind and body consciousness, and then we can listen more clearly the voice of the God, the voice of the divinity, the conscience within us, right? So that is how we are going to do it. That is what I take from this. Yeah.
Thank you, Amar. As usual, very clear. So now let's me go to this side. So Lipika, so please tell us whether it is how this has become ingrained, how you have internalized it, or how you are teaching your kids, or how you are practically implementing it. Any one of those or all of those?
Sai Ram, everyone. So first of all, Suri, Sida, I will tell you I'm shaking from inside because I'm sitting next to Swami. And that message there just is, we are playing it out, right? We're not at Swami's feet where we are so used to sitting. And Swami has given us a seat, Swami has given us a seat beside him to remind us that he's within us. And hopefully when you're listening to us, you are listening to the Swami within us. None of us is speaking. It's truly the Swami within us. So going to the question, Suri, Amar, I think you said how we take the message and what we implement is based on where we are in the path, in this journey. And I will say that I feel like I'm a kindergartner, and that's where I am. That's, I think, where I've been for the last many years. And till this day, like a kindergartner's teacher has to remind them to make sure they wash their hands before they eat anything, to always say please and thank you, to always share their toys. My teachers, my gurus, my fellow Sai family, my children, my husband, and Swami are always continuing to remind me to always wash my hands before I partake anything in the worldly ways, remembering to cleanse my mind with Nam Smarana, so that what I'm taking, I'm reminded the impurities are staying out, and I'm only getting the nutrition, the message that Swami wants to give. I'm always remembering to say please and thank you. I'm always remembering to talk obligingly. I'm always remembering to forgive and forget. And when a teacher has to remind their kids to share toys, I'm reminded that nothing is mine, and to really practice detachment. So I am still in kindergartner, and Amari said something else about going from the form to the formless. I don't think that I am anywhere close to even being ready to think about the formless. But one thing that I'm practicing every day is to remember again that Swami is not just in that chair right now. He's in Veda, he's in Amar, he's in Suri, he's in Pragnya, he's in me, and he's in each one of you. So reminding myself that Swami is in the form that surrounds us, that's here, and making sure that I'm learning from each one of you, each one of us every single day. When it comes to internalizing, right? Especially as a parent, I think I've learned the hard way to practice, not preach, to do and not say, right? And, so easy to read, and listen to Swami's discourses and nod with it and say, yes, that is right, that's a profound message. But when it comes to actually implementing and acting on it, I speak for myself, I fail miserably. And the only thing that I remind myself is practice, 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 practice. And I will say there's a Kabir Doha that I read in third grade, but it really left a very profound impact on me. Because in my childhood days, I used to live in Hyderabad, and we had a dug well in our backyard. You remember the old times, there used to be like underwater wells, and people would pull water using a pulley, right? And for all our water needs, except for drinking water, we used to use the dug well. And the help who used to come to our house, she would fill buckets and buckets of water every morning. And I remember there was boulders, right, that makes the little parapet around the dug well. And it had marks, right, from just the rope going over and over the rocks again and again. It didn't mean anything to me at the time. I just thought they were marks. But when I read Kabir's Doha in third grade, it says, Karat karat abhyas ke jadmati hot sujan, rasari avat jat se patthar pade nishan. So I know this is very old Hindi, it's not even modern Hindi. Karat karat abhyas, by doing practice over and over again, jadmati hot sujan, even the people who have low intellect can become wise. And why? Why not? Rasri avat jat se, rasri is rasi, the rope. Avat jat, when it goes up and down that piece of boulder again and again and again and again, over and over, even that piece of boulder, that rock, it leaves marks on it. So imagine, compare the power of a boulder, right? And compare a jute thread. But even that can leave a mark if you practice and practice and practice, if you keep doing it over and over again. So I think for many janmas, I'll be doing this in my kindergarten class.
I don't know about that, but very practical, and you echo sentiments of many of us. Thank you. So not least, Veda, how have you internalized this?
Sairam, thanks for allowing me to share my brief experience. I started with the innocence of a child to learn about spirituality from parents and grandparents. That was very easy for me because there is no question of form versus formless. There's no question of concept, Atma, listening to inner conscience, or whether to have idol worship or not, etc., etc. So at that point in time, there were a lot of good conduct related gospelic truths that were handed down to me. And then some of the concepts that were given to me were also found in all the scriptures. So that is when the problem occurred, because you started looking at it and analyzing it, and finally you come to the conclusion that you should have God as your guru. And who's God? Because everyone is saying the right things all over the world. And they're all guru, or there is somebody called Sadguru who is very different. So that is when my confusion came. So this is the first level of my knowledge seeking. So one has to be brutally honest about the spiritual education, because all the other education that you have, secular, you can fake intelligence. But here you cannot. So I started searching for quote-unquote God as a guru. And that is when I came across Bhagavan. And the salient question still remained in my mind, whether he is God, and if that is the case, how do I know it? So this is the fundamental problem I had in accepting him as God and God as Guru. So it came to a point where I had to ask that question to Bhagavan when I had the chance to say, Bhagavan, are you God? And if you are, then I would like to have that proof. Otherwise, all my visits to you or anything that I do will become a waste. So this was my statement to him. And for me, Guru's Charanam is both physical and abstract. So for which he did not give me any verbal answer. He just lifted the robe and just showed the sign to have. This was the first Pada Namaskara that I had. And at that point in time, the time and the place I could transcend, because Parthi did not exist and the time did not exist. And I cannot use any words because it is beyond words for me to say what that he was showing. And one good thing about that is I can relive that experience every time, every moment, and that gives me an enormous energy to relate what that spirituality is all about. So that is the first thing. And then I had a conversation with Bhagavan on that day. And, I didn't want to forget that moment because that moment is the salient moment in my life. So I went out and bought a notebook and then started jotting down all that I went through with him, which ran for about 7 pages. But I'm not going to read all the 7 pages. You can be rest assured. But the most important part that he mentioned was, if one comes to dwell on the experience of divinity that Swami alone can offer, the beneficial effect or more than one's expectation. I am going to repeat it again because this has got to be etched in memory for one to remember what this conscience is all about. If one comes to dwell on the experience of divinity, not to have the experience of divinity, dwell on the experience of divinity, which is a constant feature. It never goes away from you. That Swami alone can offer. Again, the concept that only Sadguru alone can offer. The beneficial effects are more than one's expectation. So you cannot even imagine what you're asking for, but what you're going to get is much, much, much more than what your imagination can lead you to. So this was how I was left with. And it was very clear to me that in order to have a complete surrender, there are 2 things that I needed to follow. One is, I need to do everything that I have to please him. And I need to shun everything that he would not like. So these are the 2 things, 2 resolutions that I could take. Though it took a long time for me to put that into practice, even to my satisfaction, let alone his satisfaction. So the first one was one of exemplary honesty and a very honest reply. And he said, for you, just have my feet. That is your object of worship for the rest of your life. So for me, it is still a form, but that form has gone on to the feet well within me. Manasa Bhajare. So I worship initially as an external object. It is not an object. It is that indwelling experience which is permanent, and that is the object of worship. The second time that the confusion got a little bit better, and with more and more of scriptural knowledge becoming crystallized, then I thought all the karma and bhakti will not lead to salvation. So therefore I should ask for something higher. So this time, he gave the chance. Instead of me going and blurting out the question, he said, come here, Yemi Kavala Miku, what do you want? I said, Jnanam Kavali Swami. I want Jnanam. So this time, it was a sambhashan. It's a conversation, not a monologue. So there, his answer was again, Teesko. So, brothers and sisters, Jnanam is there in Guru's feet. God is Guru's feet. Concepts are Guru's feet. Conscience is Guru's feet. Everything around you and you are Guru's feet. It is the manifestation of Guru's feet. And the final time, this Guru Charanam, how it came to my rescue was just before his samadhi. Only two people were sitting there. One was fortunately me, and he called. And this time I said, I would like to have your Pada Namaskar. He said, why Pada Namaskar? Put your head on my head. So this is the quintessential aspect of my spiritual knowledge about what he comes to give. There is nothing called your own concept. The concept comes to you by just surrendering your body, mind, and intellect at his feet, because his feet are just a fountain of knowledge which can sustain you here and hereafter. Sairam.
We're indeed blessed that we have people who have had first-hand conversation with Swami to share that. And maybe Swami intended that after all those years, that on this Guru Poornima occasion, that we all should listen to this wonderful message. Great. Thank you, Swami. So now I'm going to put these panelists in a pickle a little bit. Okay. So maybe by wording the topic as though it's a journey from feet to Guru in me, we might have gravitated that way. But if you look at it really, and I actually applaud Prajna for saying that once she is away from the constant availability of gurus in the form of SSC teachers, her parents, or whomsoever, she is being able to listen to and rely on herself. That is really fantastic. So I want all of you to engage with me and say, how are you seeing that inner voice of Swami? Because we all pray to Swami. We sort of live with Swami. He's there throughout our lives. How are we making it practical in our lives of listening to him? Because we all meet a number of troublesome, difficult situations, and we all know where we go to. And so, anyone wants to shed some light on how Swami is helping with that inner voice? Yeah.
Sairam. Avatars descend on earth in order to establish Dharma. And what is the Dharma that our Bhagavan has come to establish? The Dharma that he has come to establish in Kali Yuga is called the Prema Dharma. This is nothing but love. And Swami clearly defines his definition of Dharma as selfless love. I mean, love cannot be selfish because all the other love are all with a lot of qualification. Any time when it is qualified, that means it has a restriction. And in English, you know, to define is to limit. So you cannot have a definition. Once you have a definition, there is a limit on it. So how can Atma be? A limitless Atma can be defined. It cannot be defined. So it has got to be a selfless love. So that is what he has come to establish. So once there was an interlude in Prashantinilayam, and Swami came and started giving a discourse because he didn't want to waste time. And Ghantasala, I think, was there to give a concert, and he was coming a little late. So Swami said, I don't want to waste this time. I want everybody to benefit by this time. So he said, how do you know that you're listening to your inner conscience and you're not listening to your own mind? In other words, conscience will always give you only a dharmic thought. It will not misguide you. It will always, because conscience is God. So God is not going to tell you something that is not right for you. So a right for you is always dharmic. So he gave 3 pointers for defining what is dharma and what is not dharma for each individual to know. The first one is that there should be a harmony of thought, word, and action. If it is not there, then you are deviating from dharma. The practical example, just for the sake of youngsters here who want to know how it can be interpreted in the real world, is you want to give something as a donation for somebody who is wanting a small fee in the street corner, and suddenly a thought comes to your mind whether he is going to use this for rightful purposes or not. And you still want to give him. And it leaves you with a lingering thought whether you have done the right thing or not. You don't need to do it. God doesn't want you to part with your money because God is Jagat Rakshaka. He will take care of him. But that doesn't mean I'm not saying that you should not give any alms to anybody. If there is a thorn which is affecting this harmony of your thought, word, and action, then I think you got to be careful about not going forward. So that is one way of conscience speaking to you as guiding you on dharmic path. The second is, when you make the decision, you should be at peace. If it leaves you with a little bit of restlessness at the end of it, a dharmic thought will never leave you with the restlessness. So after doing all these back and forth calculations, coming to Amar's example of 40% loss, it just leaves you with still a quandary at the end of it. Then you're not listening to conscience. You're listening to your mind full of desires. That's number 2. The third, the dharmic thought when you take, not only it'll give you joy, but also the recipient joy. This is where the selfless love comes. So in other words, by constant abhyasa, that practice that she was alluding to, you will start taking decisions in such a way that it'll lead you to even sacrifice at some point. That you will be a little bit at a disadvantage, whereas the recipient will be at an advantageous position. Not that you're a doormat. You're taking a very high dharmic decision where it is okay for that person to have a little bit of an edge over you. It doesn't matter. It is dharmic. Just to give an example, in super specialty hospital, one time when equipment in the cardiac cath lab has got to be negotiated. So the rule at that time was it has got to be brought down to 30% down because it is always marked higher. So these people went back and forth arguing, and at the end of it, it came up to 25% and not the exact 30%. So they went to Swami and said, Swami said, I'm coming to the cath lab today. He came, everybody thought what he's going to do. He said, please accept this 25%. You don't need to be 30% because that is all the profit margin he has. If you go still further, he may sell you the instrument, but he will charge you very heavily for every part that goes out of order. So in other words, even in a business, that much Swami instill dharma. So I gave that as an example, not because of the commercial aspect of it, but sometimes when you make a decision, not only you have a joy, but also other person may also have joy in that decision. So these are the 3 pointers he gave. Harmony of thought, word, and action. It gives you joy to you and to the recipient. And thirdly, of course, I mentioned that it will leave you with a tranquil mind at the end of it. Sairam.
Thank you. Very practical. Hope we can always implement it. Thank you. Lipika, anything you want to add? A couple more minutes, then we will throw it open to the audience.
To share my experience as a young adult when we would go as Seva Dal, and something Vedaji you mentioned really struck me. You mentioned, what would please him, right? I have to do only things that would make him happy and shun everything that does not make him happy. And I think even for me, even oversimplifying everything else, I think the one thing that I can, if before any action, if I can think about is this going to please Swami or not, that to me is the easiest way to filter everything out. And I'll share this. As a young adult, we used to go for seva at Parthi, and sometimes I did seva in Kulwant Hall, Sai Kulwant Hall. It was a very rigorous seva. We would wake up at 2:30 a.m., and you would have seen the seva dals carrying the brooms, the tall brooms and the mops, and hordes of girls go to the Sai Kulwant Hall at like 2:33 a.m. And we would work very hard to make the floor sparkling and shiny and chase all the pigeons away so that there wouldn't be any, right? So after going through that experience, Swami would come out and we would all pine for just one look from him, all the Seva Dal girls. And our Seva Dal, all the Seva Dals were, trained and guided by Shori auntie, who, if you go to Parthi, you will see she always sits at the entrance of the east gate, and Swami would always pause and every single day talk to her, even if it was for a second. Shori auntie was a hard taskmaster. Every morning we were yelled at for missing something. There would be one block we would have missed out, and we would get it from her. And every morning when Swami would come and talk to her, we would say, "Swami, we work so hard." She was yelling at us the whole time. And you went to talk to her and you ignored us. Not fair, not fair. Many months, every seva trip I would go, this would linger on my mind. So once I actually was sitting next to one of the Anantapur girls, right? The girls who wear the yellow scarf in Puttaparthi, they have been to Anantapur's campus, studied there. And I was sitting next to one of those akkas, and I said, Swami does this every time. I'm really, feeling so dejected each time. So she said, "Shori auntie, every single step, she's saying, will this make Swami happy? Will this make Swami happy?" Everything she does is whether or not it will make Swami happy. If it won't make Swami happy, she'll be mad. And I said, wow, I never think about that. I come here and say, "Swami, will you talk to me? Will you give me Bad Namaskar? Will you give me Vibhuti? Will this? Will that?" I'm always coming with wants. She's coming to make you happy. And that was an eye-opener for me, and I thought I'll just share that.
So I'm sure there are many more thoughts mulling in our minds, but just to make sure that we get the rest of you also engaged, we got 10 more minutes. Any thoughts from either on the ladies' side or on the men's side?
Shiva, can you pass the mic on the men's side?
Yeah.
One more? Need one more?
No. I'll use the yellow one. I'll give this back. Take the yellow.
No comments from the audience?
Start with you.
Okay.
The professor will guide
to
us.
me first. Lovely discussion, and everybody made wonderful points. Thank you for sharing such intimate details and thoughts and all of that. It's really nice. I think we can all identify with everything that everybody here said. But threading through a few of the comments, it appears to me that a lot of this is you have to give it time. Swami is a slow acting, to your wonderful Kabir Doha. He's a slow acting kind of a person. He doesn't do everything in a flash for you. He'll do it over time. So time is an important essence here. He is Kala Swarupa, right? He is worried about you making progress over several lifetimes. He doesn't worry about next month. You're worried about next month. He's not worried about next month. So time is an important factor here. So you have to allow for Swami to work on you. When that happens, a lot of what Vishwanathan said will make sense, because it will automatically come. You don't have to strain too much. The experiences that Prajna, you're going through and so on, we have all gone through. Going to some new place and not having people to support you and so on. You have to come to rely on yourself. And, what should I do? You have to reflect back on the experience you've had. The experiences of Swami that you've had the fortune to have one-on-one, or maybe second-hand, or whatever it might be. So many of the stories we've heard and so on. If you keep dwelling on those things, your operating system will change. You will have an iOS upgrade. Right? Version Psi.0 will come in instead of...
We have to be connected to the power source.
Yes. You have to keep thinking. You have to keep thinking. And so then what happens is, your initial reaction, like Vishwanathan was saying, will be the right one. The conscience will come. And it is optimizing for your well-being. It is optimizing for the well-being of the other person. So the things that I've noticed a long, long time ago, when we used to ask questions to Dr. Goldstein or Will Harvey or so many of the other senior devotees, they would have answers very quickly. They will come up with answers. And I used to wonder, how is it they have that instinct? And it is simply because time has worked on them. Swami has worked on them over time, and they have changed over the period. So the ability for our mind to change, when you are putting that mind at Swami's feet, is what is going to give you all the discrimination you possibly can need and more to take the right decisions. You have to have faith that that will happen. I think if we sort of think about that, it's not as strenuous. Otherwise, it's a very arduous thing to think, what is going to happen? I'm still in kindergarten after 35 years. What is going on here? I'm not even making it to the middle school. But I think if you dwell on that, you're going to have trouble. If you dwell on the fact that Swami is there, why fear when I'm here? One of the senior devotees in our center a long time ago, he said the sentence is a very simple one. He said, the way I'm thinking about it now, after many, many years of reflecting on this simple statement that Swami made, is don't fear for your own spiritual progress. I've come here for that. Why fear when I'm here? It's not about paying your mortgage that Swami is saying, why fear when I'm here? Don't fear for your spiritual progress. I'm here for that. So leave it to him. And I think that's a sort of way to, thread through a lot of the comments you said. At least in my mind, that's how it worked. Sairam.
Anyone from the ladies' side?
So this actually fits really beautifully with last week's satsang that we had with unity of thought, word, and deed. And I just wanted to, I was talking to Veda this morning actually for a long time. We were just chatting. But what really connected with me on this topic and with all of what you said and what Shyam also brought about is that the first thing we have to do is think about him. Right? I mean, Lipika said that, it doesn't even have to be an offering. You don't have to say, I'm offering this to you. But the very fact that you even just think about Swami, that is establishing that you're acknowledging that he's in your life, he's there. And as far as like form and formless, we have to start with the form. And it takes practice to see the formless. And we can all just say, oh, we live in the United States, we didn't see Swami's form, we're not in Puttaparthi, the picture is all I need. But that's the whole thing, right? Swami is sitting in that chair. When we're here and we are saying that we're speaking, he's listening to what what we're saying. He's there, he's around us, and he's beside us to guide and guard. Those statements aren't just simple things. They are very profound. So, he is there. When the 3 ohms and we signal and he comes and sits there, he's there for us. He's waiting for us. We just have to realize that we have to join him. It's not just a mechanical, say 3 ohms and just you're done. So that was my takeaway. But thank you. It was a beautiful discussion from all of you.
He's as real as we make him to be. One thought I would like to add, so I'll take the indulgence as the moderator here. But someone told me, when you start breaking down a granite, you might have to hit it 20 times. The 19 times you don't see anything happening. And the 20th time it breaks. So in our multiple lifetimes, we are hitting the granite and it's going to break one of these days. So going from the monkey mind to the monk mind is what we're trying to do. One of these days, this will become monk mind. Amar and Prajna, anything else you want to add? You have just 2 minutes. Anything else final?
As you might know, we were studying Ramakatha Rasavaini in Group 4, right? And as part of that, one of the things that happened is, Vishwamitra comes and takes Rama and Lakshmana along with him, right? And Rama and Lakshmana are young and very enthusiastic to go and perform the act of protecting the Vishwamitra's yajna and, kill all those Rakshasas, right? They were this is the first time they're fighting anybody, and they're very enthusiastic about it, So, so I was pointing out to the, boys in the class, they took on something that they have never done. It's a pretty huge task for their age. They were, if I remember correctly, around 12 years old at that time, So, and they approached the task enthusiastically. And what happened in the process, Vishwamitra gives them lots of astras. He gives them mantras through which they conquer sleep, they conquer hunger, right? So they are much better off from the experience. So I was just pointing out to them that, when we take on anything, that is a little bit beyond us, we grow in the process. We learn new things in the process, right? So I was pointing out from that story to the boys. Now I come out of the class that day, right? As soon as I come out, Mohan was the educational coordinator at that time. Mohan comes to me, we have Aradhana day, would you like to be part of the Veda chanting group, So I told him, I don't know Veda chanting, I don't want to be, A few minutes later I realized, Swami's, I've said something in the class, when something, when you're tasked with something that is beyond you, and if you take it on, you grow in the process. That's what grand message in the class. I come out of the class, and Swami puts me the test, and this sort of a thing has happened innumerable number of times, So I realized after about half an hour, what happened there, and then, I did connect to I think Teja, I connected to Teja and I told her, that I want to do Veda chanting, even though I've never done it. So, I prepared some index cards, everybody is chanting nicely. I was looking at index cards and chanting, just because, that was very clear for me. So the key message from the very beginning, since I came to Swami's fold is, it's not just talking, it is about putting things into practice. It's not just about learning, it is about putting things into practice, right? What use is, by hearting a recipe if you don't cook the recipe, and what use is the food you cook if you don't eat it, right? So, unless you, eat, it doesn't appease your hunger. So, not just cooking, not just knowing the recipe, you have to eat, so you have to put the things into practice. So, this has been the constant message from the very beginning, I mean, this has happened many times. This is only one instance. One instance I'm sharing you. Many times this has happened.
What wonderful way to close. This is the guru in him talking to him. So, thank you. Thank you, panel. And thank you, Sita, for the opportunity. Take it away.
Sairam all. Thanks for the enlightening discussion with the Swamis and all of us, hearing and speaking through each one of you. There were a lot of messages that we all could take, and each of us would probably resonate with one single message. So as we say, there is no one right answer. So the messages that have been shared today are all very profound towards application of the message, more than just learning and doing it. And I love the fact that we have to eat what we cook. Else others also have to eat what we cook. I'm just saying. So on that note, I want to thank...
That's the joy to the other people.
So I want to once again thank Swami. As I said in the beginning, the implantation to the fruition was totally on Swami's timeline. This is not something that I could have conceived. I would say that humbly. I mean, others could have, but this is something that is so beyond my ken to bring this, and it's Swami's true will that made it happen. So on that note, we will end with 1 Om and 3 Shantis. Just a reminder as we started, between the Sai Circle and Bhajan, when we are playing the music, please move around with as much silence as we could and take our places for the Bhajan Hall. Sai Ram. Shah